I was 12 years old when I used drugs for the first time. Growing up as a kid, my mother was a drug addict, my father was a drug addict. Grandparents on both sides were either drug addicts or drug dealers. Never in my life would I have thought that I would have went down the path that I went, but I struggled with a 12-year drug addiction. When I was 19 years old, I became addicted to heroin. I can remember when I was 23, I was up in Dayton, Ohio. I was just buying heroin and I was on my way home and I got a phone call that my grandmother had died. We arrived at the house and they pronounced and told us that she had died from a drug overdose. The thing was that I had been using heroin that day with her before I went to buy more. And so here I am living with guilt, living with shame, brokenness, pain, all these things from my childhood, from my past that have brought me to the place that I'm at. But a week later, everything in my life changed. There was an outreach that came to our city and it was called Hope Over Heroin. I knew two things. I needed hope and I was on heroin. And so I went to that event. There were 7,000 people standing in that parking lot. There were people that I knew, a lot of familiar faces, so I had to overcome a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of pain that I was up against. But I went to the altar that night to receive Jesus Christ. I needed Jesus to come and touch me. I needed him to come and change me. I came in humility and I came with my brokenness. I didn't have much to offer. All I gave him was my heart. And that sent my life on a trajectory that changed my life forever. 18 months after that, I ended up in a program called Heritage House, which is a byproduct of Hope Over Heroin. I went through that program, and here I am today leading that program. It's been 7 years since Jesus Christ changed my life for good. I was addicted, I was bound, I was broken, I was being destroyed by sin, but Jesus came and he literally lifted me out of the pit of destruction. You know, I've seen thousands of men over the past 7 years that have given their life to Christ. They've been delivered, they've been set free, and they're serving the Lord today. You know what's really amazing is that I stood in front of that stage, 115 pounds. I had track marks going up and down my neck. I've stood on that same stage and I've seen people give their lives to Jesus Christ. I've seen people lay their needles on the altar. I've seen people lay their drugs on the altar. I've seen people who were hopeless and lifeless come and receive life one more time. And some of them are still serving the Lord today. You know, the things that I have today are things that I only wish I would have had growing up, things that I prayed for. And one of those things was a wife, children, beautiful home. I have things today that I only imagined about having. You know, my mother serves the Lord today. She was addicted, running the streets, and God used me to bring her into the kingdom of God, and she's serving Jesus now. You know, one of the things that I look at for me growing up is that I had to see my parents addicted. I had to see them on drugs. I had to see them use needles, all these things. And one thing that I've made up my mind on is my children will never have to see the things that I had to see growing up. I made a decision that the generational curse was gonna stop with me. I had to draw a line in the sand and say, God, everything that you have for me, that's what I want. And I wanna pass it on to my children, and I wanna pass that on to the next generation. Hope Over Heroin came into my city, and it helped change my life. I'll forever be grateful, and I'll forever be appreciative for the people that came and preached this message to me that changed my life forever.